the August 7th Cooper City Council meeting to order. Madam Clerk, you call the roll.
Mr. Green?
Here.
Mr. Lyda?
Here.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Here.
Mr. Murphy? Mr. Posey?
Here.
Mr. Shaw?
Here.
Mr.
Here. If everyone will stand, Sandy will start the invocation and go to the pledge.
Let us pray. Almighty God, we praise you and honor you this day. We acknowledge that we need your wisdom, love, and compassion to rightly lead this nation. We ask your blessings on all leaders. Help them realize their need for you and for your direction. May they hear your voice in their decision-making. We thank you for our blessings of life and liberty, and we ask your blessings of protection on our servicemen and women, both here and around the world. We pray for those in our community who are in need of healing. We place them in your care. And we ask your blessings on our teachers, students, and parents as they begin a new school year. These things we ask in the name of your beloved Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Salute and pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Members should all have received, have received minutes from the July 17th regular meeting and the August 3rd work session. If so, take a motion.
Mr. President, I move for approval of the minutes without reading.
Second.
We have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed nay. The ayes have it. Mr. Mayor, doesn't appear we have anything in reports. Don't believe. Move right along. We need a motion to reschedule the September 4th council meeting to September 5th due to waiver.
Mr. President, I move for the regularly scheduled September 4th meeting to be moved to Tuesday, September 5th at 6 o'clock.
Second.
We have a motion second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed nay. The ayes have it. Item number 7, Resolution 5604-17, Mr. Kelly.
Invitations to bid for police uniforms and accessories, bid number 17-007, were sent to 59 vendors listed on the City of Hoover vendor list. Bids were opened on Wednesday, July 12, 2017. One bid was received for municipal and commercial uniform in the amount of $5,213.25, about all specifications and requirements. This resolution rejects this bid and authorizes the mayor or his designee to negotiate a price with such bidder and to enter into a contract with the bidder at a price not to exceed its quoted bid amount.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution 5604-17.
Second.
Sorry?
To consider the previously tabled item.
Okay, yes, this was tabled. And so I guess we need a motion to bring it back before the council, even though it's already listed.
Motion to bring before the council from the previously tabled item.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed nay. The ayes have it. Now we will bring resolution 5604-17 up for consideration.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution 5604-17.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments from the council? Questions? Any from the audience? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed nay. The ayes have it. Item number 8. Mr. Mayor, would you like to spend a few words before the action items?
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a real special night for us tonight. Two things we're going to talk about. Number one, we're going to announce publicly about our Class 1 ISO rating. Number two, we're going to talk about Chief John Wingate, who, after 42 years of loyal service, has elected to retire and join those of in the ranks of retirees. Chief, if you come up for just a minute. Chief joined our department in 1975. I think we had one station and maybe 9 men at the time. And joined as one of our first paramedics in the city of Hoover Fire Department, rose through the ranks, started out as a firefighter, and a lieutenant at Station 1, became a captain and was moved into the fire marshal's office. From there, he became a battalion chief. We served alongside each other, gosh, a lot of years, Chief, as battalion chief. In 2009, he was named fire chief for the city of Hoover, and has done just a remarkable job. And if you you look at our department and you go by a fire station if you haven't been there, just take a look at our equipment, see what it looks like, how good it looks, how clean it looks, how sharp it looks. Open the doors and look inside and see the type of equipment that we have. We match any fire department in the country in terms of what we have and the type of equipment that we have. We feel like we've been handed pretty much everything in the book, haven't we, Chief? And through his leadership, we have a wonderful fire and emergency medical services system in the city of Hoover that all of us can be proud to be a part of. And it was people like Chief Wingate that led us and led these individuals in the back that inspired them to do a great job. And from there, one of the benchmarks that a fire department is rated is their ISO rating, your insurance rating. And the classification is from a 1 to a 10. And you probably saw us start out at a 7 or an 8 back when Chief started in 1975. And every 3, 4, 5, maybe 10 years, we would do a little better. We'd get to a 6 and then a 5, and then we were really proud when we got to a class 3. We thought that was just really something, and then we thought we were really, really in high cotton when we hit a class 2. And we stayed a class 2 for many, many years, which is a very difficult achievement in itself. So we got our last rating last year, and it came back a class 2 again, and we were just that close. But Chief took it upon himself and asked his men to, let's work a little harder. Let's look and see exactly what we can do, what's out there that we can pick up a point here or a point there. And I'm proud to say, and I know that he's proud to be able to lead a Class 1 fire department.
Mayor, if I could,
I'm not doing it.
oh, okay.
I know you got a lot to say. No, Chief is leaving us after 42 years, and Sandra, his wife, is here. And one thing I know about Chief Wingate, Chuck, and Sandra, that Sandra's not only his wife, that's his best friend. Am I right? And so that's a great example that he's had as a firefighter, but also as a husband and a father. So that's something to be proud of as well. Now, we have something that's very special, and I want to ask, where's Alan? We have a little proclamation we felt like would be very important to read on one of your last meetings here. And when we get done, I would ask all of the fire members to come forward, and let's take a picture with Chief on this great event for him.
Ms. Corley, Resolution 5615-17, please.
Mr. Wright, you can read the resolution.
Mr. President, as a member of the
Alumni Association of the Fire Department. I know you'll share my pride as we read this. Resolution number 5615-17, whereas the Hoover Fire Department has provided services to the community since its inception in 1962 that are second to none, and the Hoover Fire Department has long been recognized as a premier firefighting and fire service organization, consistently performing in an outstanding and professional manner. And whereas the Hoover Fire Department training and expertise is clearly evident in all areas of fire and rescue, hazardous materials response, and emergency medical services. And whereas the rating system for fire departments throughout the United States is established by the Insurance Services Office through its public protection, classification, and ratings factors, which include the city's fire department, water supply, emergency communication system, and community risk reduction efforts, such as fire codes and enforcement, public fire safety education, and fire investigations. And whereas the ISO rating scale is from 1 to 10, with 1 being the highest, and whereas an ISO rating of 1 is an indicator of the effectiveness of a city's fire department and results in lower insurance premiums for its citizens, and whereas effective August 1st, 2017, the City of Hoover's Fire Department earned a Class 1 ISO rating, making them one of only 12 of the approximately 1,500 Alabama fire departments, and one of only 178 of approximately 49,000 fire departments nationwide that have earned such a rating. And whereas the men and women of the Hoover Fire Department, both now and in the past, who have steadfastly pursued this goal throughout the years, are to be congratulated for this tremendous achievement. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Hoover, in regular meeting duly assembled, a quorum being present, that the Hoover Fire Department is hereby recognized, honored, and commended for its commitment to excellence, its determination to always go above and beyond in its service to the Hoover community, and its outstanding achievement of a Class 1 ISO rating, adopted this the 7th day of August, 2017. Mayor, do you have anything else? Chief, I know that I enjoy the opportunity to call you friends, close friends. You've seen a lot of good over the years, we've seen some stumbles over the years. I'd always hoped that one day I would have been your equal as far as the chief, battalion chief. But that wasn't gonna happen. We had other opportunities. Chief Bradley gave a lot of people in this city a great foundation, not just in the fire service. But I think Chief Bradley touched everyone in this city. He gave you a sound base where you took the helm and you made the extraordinary even better. Only because of your leadership and your tutelage. It would have been very easy to say, hey, we got close, but we weren't going to accept that. Lord knows I never expected I'd be sitting where I'm sitting. There's probably quite a few others. I think I heard Chief Durst in the back somewhere. But I want to thank you for what you've meant to the city.
I want to thank you for what you've meant to me.
I didn't do the ISO by myself. It's all these new leaders that you see lined up against the back wall. And this man over here, the mayor, was right beside me when we did the ISO, we got the class 2. We just ramped it up a little bit. He was right there with us. Thank you. Thank all of y'all for your help.
We have some visitors tonight. I had an opportunity to go see a play, maybe about 10 days ago. I was impressed. And when I looked through the actors and actresses listed in the brochure, I saw a lot of Hoover City School students, a lot, probably a dozen or more. And because of the great acting that they did, they just closed out, I think, last night. Who was in charge of that program? Come on down. Come on down. This was at the Virginia Sanford Theater on the South Side. And this was their rendition of Willy Wonka. And it was amazing. The craft that was put into the sets and the craft of the students. I don't know if the older grandfather or grandpa had stayed in the bed the whole time, if he was a Hoover student or not, but he really did a good job of crackling that voice. But if you would please go to the microphone and introduce these young people to the audience.
So my name is Jennifer Spiegel, and I'm in charge of the STARS program at Virginia Sanford Theater, which is a program that did this show. So we have, I think, 6 students here with us today. So Camden Young is right here. Young, sorry, I said her name wrong. She played Mrs. Bucket.
Come on down in front. We might want to get our picture made.
And then Elizabeth Toomey, who played a cook and an Oompa Loompa. Yes. Ellen Nunn, who played Mrs. Bloop. Mary Caroline Stevens, who played Matilda. Mia Stevens, who played Phineas Trout. And Daniela Afanador Baez, who played an Oompa Loompa and a cook. We had 58 children total in the show, so my memory's not so great. Jackson! And Jackson White, who played Mr. Bucket.
This is a program that is partially funded through some of the community service grants and contracts that the council and the city has with various organizations. And y'all are obviously putting the citizens' tax money to great use. And I also understand that you use one of our schools to practice in that. Correct?
That might not be our program.
Okay, somebody. But I just think that these kids, they did an amazing job. It's too late for this last performance, but I'm sure they're going to be there for others in the future. If you have a chance to go see, you really should. Yes, council would like to have our picture made, Mr. Mayor. That way when they become famous, we can remember them. Item number 9, 5616-17, amendment to the current year fiscal budget. Mr. Corley.
Mr. President, first, we take a motion to approve the resolution that was read.
That would be very good.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution 56-15-17.
Second.
Madam Clerk, I'd like to make this roll call vote.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Ida?
Aye.
Dr. Henry?
Aye.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Aye. There were a number of original proclamations that were signed. One is going to be given to Chief Wingate that he can take home when he retires, or when his wife doesn't. One is going to be left to remain in fire administration and go to an original copy to go in each fire station. I guess when you get to number 11, we'll have to pass another one. With that, we will move to item 9, 5616-17.
This resolution amends the budget for fiscal year ending September 30, 2017 for the items set forth on the budget amendment attached to the resolution. I've added several of these items are separately later in the agenda, so it would be subject to approval of those items.
Right, right. I guess we'll take a motion.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution 56-16-17.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the council? Any from the audience? This is several things. One thing that, probably one of the more major things is, depending on how the vote were to go later on, it would provide some funding for a couple of drainage projects that we're moving forward. Nothing else to say. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed nay. The ayes have it. Item 10, 5617-17, Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes the mayor to execute a professional services agreement with KPS Group, Inc. for comprehensive plan consulting services for the city of Hoover. I understand from Mr. Martin that this resolution should be subject to some minor changes to the contract for monthly progress payments based on percentage of completion versus a lump sum. And that's those are the changes that we will review and approve.
That's not already in there. I thought I saw something like that.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution 56-17-17.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. You have anything you want to add there, Mr. Martin?
Well, just that we had some language to provide some flexibility in how we would have a final determination on the payment method. After talking with the consultant, I agree that the method payment going monthly with a narrative as to the percentage complete on the project is an appropriate way to proceed. It's the way I'm accustomed to do these types of projects, so I'm okay with that. Just the only thing I'd like to add is I know this has been a highly anticipated project. I'm very glad to be at this point where we've selected a highly qualified firm that's going to lead a highly qualified team in this effort to take a look at our community comprehensively and plan for its future. I know one of the major tenets of what the mayor ran on was looking for the next 10, 20, even 50 years, and same likewise with several of you members of the council. So I'm very excited about taking this on, and I think we have a good partner in KPS Group to help us achieve that.
Any comments or questions from the council?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
Matt, I understand that this comprehensive plan will definitely look at the growth of our city and how we're going to look. But it also touch upon looking at some of our city ordinances, particularly like parking issues, historic neighborhoods, property upkeep, particularly
comprehensive planning effort. We're looking at citywide growth issues as well as honing in on neighborhoods in our community, making sure that we have suggestions for policy that keep our neighborhoods to the high degree that they already operate, as well as even attracting reinvestment into those neighborhoods. The city plan will enable us to have a direction, a set of guidelines in place for the next step, which will be the implementation of the plan. And in that implementation phase, you will take the guidance given to you by the plan and consider ordinances that actually see the goals and benchmarks achieved. So I do look for this to provide guidance on a wide array of issues related to the growth of our community.
Thank you.
Mr. President. Yes, sir. Smart, and the total amount of this contract?
Right at $150,000. And all of the proposals that we received were within $1,000 of one another, $1,000 to $2,000. And we felt like with KPS Group, essentially when you're hiring a consultant, you're paying for their time and their expertise. And with the KPS proposal, in reviewing it, I felt like we got the biggest bang for our buck.
Thank you. Mr. Martin, how many RFPs were sent out?
Let's see, we received 4 proposals to consider, and we had, all 4 were very high qualified. No doubt their expertise in assisting with the comprehensive planning effort. But as I said, you're paying for consulting, you're paying for time, you're paying for their travel, you're paying for a number of things. And with the KPS team, we found a unique convergence of not only the professional ability to do what we're tasked with doing, but also assembling a team that came in at our benchmark for cost, a team that had the highest level of experience with our community. Matter of fact, one of the teammates, if you will, on their proposal was Skipper Transportation Planning, to take a look specifically at the transportation component of the plan. And so the team had a level of expertise that surpassed everybody else in relation to familiarity with Hoover and its issues and the things we want to try to achieve. And then lastly, with 2 members of the team being here in Birmingham, there was really no comparison to the travel costs associated between KPS Group and the team they've assembled and the others, which represented a lead from Huntsville, a lead from Columbus, Ohio, and a lead from Atlanta. So, like I said, there was a convergence of several items that we were looking for and felt like KPS proposal was the best fit.
Who all was on the selection committee?
That would be our administration. So I worked with the mayor and Mr. Rice, take a look at the proposals that were in front of us, and felt like that was the best one.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Any other questions or comments?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Purdy, I have two
All right.
questions. The first one is I noticed that a lot of these plans date back several years, so you've been able to, I'm sure, take a look at what was planned and how it was implemented over time with this group. Is that correct?
That's right.
And to see how feasible a lot of it was to be done and not to be done. The second, and I'm sure that all these people out here want to know the answer to this, how soon, once this is approved, will they be talking to people, hearing from people about their input on this plan?
Well, the project is going to be divided into 3 phases. We're looking at approximately 10 months of total project time. The initial phase is going to be where our consultant comes in, sits down with city leadership, sits down with the administration, sits down with some key stakeholders in the community, and we work to put together our community profile. Our community profile is in essence a snapshot in time. Before you can plan for the future, before you can begin with the end in mind, you have to have an understanding and a firm foundation in how our community sits today in a variety of variables. So that's phase 1, looking at approximately 2 months for that to get underway and near completion. And then after that, we start phase 2, which is the public participation program, where we've budgeted quite a number of times for the consultant to be here in the community for us to arrange community input programs across the city. We're going to try to structure that in a way that is convenient to as many people as possible, so they can come out, have input. We're also expecting an online component to the input program in phase 2. So our goal is to try to make this project as convenient to the folks, to the stakeholders in this community as possible. And then looking at approximately 3 to 4 months with that, with the third phase taking up the remainder of our schedule, which is actually drafting the plan and having drafts available for review and for comment.
Anything else from the council?
President, just,
Yes.
I will say I'm pretty pumped about this. I don't know if that's a cliche way to say it, but this is something a lot of us campaigned on. I'm familiar with some of these plans that this company has worked with before. I know, can you comment a little bit, because there is like state law that surrounds us with approval processes and who has to approve it. How does that work in relation to planning and zoning and the council and BZA and all that?
Okay. Per state law, the planning commission is charged with the approval of the city's master plan, and that master plan can be comprehensive or it can be incremental. We've chosen to take a more comprehensive approach, but yeah, it's the duty of the planning commission to approve that. Certainly, in my past experience, whenever we've had a plan that has gone before the planning commission and has been approved, we always like to, in that process, take it before the city council as well, to get the general consensus of the council that they're in agreement with the direction we're going. Because certainly, as I've heard it, the mayor's the rudder on the ship that is the city council's the wind in the sail, and if you don't have the buy-in of the wind in the sail, you're not going to go anywhere. So, so we always like to incorporate the council in that process.
Any questions or comments from the audience? Those of you that don't know, Mr. Shaw just returned from vacation. He was so upset from missing work session, he went to a Gulf Shores City Council meeting to make up for it.
Not much of a city geek.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed nay. The ayes have it. Item number 11, resolution 5618-17, Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes the mayor to execute a community service agreement with Leadership Hoover Inc. for the provision of the services set forth therein.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution 5618-17.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the council?
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Can someone speak on how the committee itself was chosen?
Yes, Dr. Middlebrooks, that's the Leadership Hoover, now board, was an exploratory committee. At the beginning of this term, the mayor asked the Hoover Chamber of Commerce if they would take this on as an initiative, and they did so, and they appointed from within their mechanism a committee to begin work on Leadership Hoover. As the scope of the effort became apparent, we also offered up some city employees, and Mr. Murphy, your colleague, also made himself available to that group. And so when the concept became that it needed to be a standalone 501c3, the people who were on the committee at that time were asked to serve as the initial founding board members with rotating terms, so that it wouldn't be a permanent board, it would be a board that where seats were exchanged on a regular periodic basis.
What's the term?
They're staggered. I'd have to get the document, but certain people were asked to fill a 1-year seat, 2-year seat, 3-year seat. I think the total term, 3 years is the maximum, thank you, Mr. Boyle, 3-year maximum, so we have, you know, the board divided in thirds, and they'll fill those seats for a scaled amount of time.
And when they're coming off, has it been determined how new board members will be selected? Will we have an application process, or will it be chosen, who will it be chosen by?
Trying to recall the corporation documents, so it's not a city-appointed board, so trying to remember what the incorporation documents specify. the board elected
Remaining board members would elect and fill those vacancies.
to fill the seat. Not much different than a lot of the 501c3s that receive CSAs. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from the council? Hearing none, any from the audience? Questions or comments from the audience? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Item number 12, resolution 5619-17, Mr. Ford.
This resolution authorizes the mayor to accept deeds from SB Dev Corp. for properties located within Trace Crossings for the use by the city of Hoover as park property and as a roadway.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution 561917.
Second.
Motion and second. Any questions or comments from the council? Any from the audience? With that, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Item 13, resolution 5620-17, Mr. Ford.
This resolution ratifies agreements between the city and Alabama Power Company related to construction projects at the Hoover Metropolitan Complex.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution 562017.
Second.
We have a motion and second. Any comments from the council? Any from the audience? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Next, we're gonna have a couple of resolutions. We can probably vote them concurrently, but we need to have them conversed and read separately. Mr. Foley, resolution 5621-17.
This resolution authorizes the mayor to execute a lease for property owned by the Hoover City Board of Education located at 571 Park Avenue in the old Bluff Park Elementary School building for use by the city for public cultural facilities as an art center, art gallery, and related facilities.
I'm open for a motion.
Mr. President, due to several remaining questions regarding finances, buildings condition, et cetera, I move that resolution 5621-17 be continued to the next council meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the council?
Mr. President, I'd prefer that we vote on this tonight. I'd like to,
Motion to continue.
But we also have someone here in the audience that I believe would like to hear her wishes heard. Dr. Murphy, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Thank you, Councilman. Obviously, it's our desire as a school district to have this matter addressed as soon as possible. We had a joint meeting with City Council on May the 26th, and we had an open conversation at that time about working out the property at that time. Matter of fact, on that morning, we charged our two attorneys to meet together and to spend some time during that Memorial Weekend to begin to craft what the language would look like. And, we're just very hopeful to be able to make progress on this matter soon. If there are questions that we fail to answer, I'm not sure what those are. We're perfectly willing to try to respond if there are questions this evening, but as it relates to the question of timeliness, we're ready for a decision from the council when you gentlemen are ready.
Would a 2-week continuance be of a problem that the school board might reconsider the lease itself?
Obviously representing the board at this point, I'm sure that our board may be amenable to that. They're not here for me to pose that question to them. Just from the frame of time that we've had, would seem that we've had an adequate period of time to have our attorneys have conversations. They've actually drafted this document together. Any questions that have been posed to us, we have responded to those immediately. So, from that end,
from the superintendent. Is there anyone in the council that wishes to have any conversation at this time?
President, this is the point of order. Doesn't Robert's rules dictate that once you have a motion and a second to continue, there's no more discussion?
Yes, sir, I felt like I needed to allow the superintendent to speak.
Sure, but for the council.
Just making sure. Madam Clerk, if you please call the roll.
Mr. Green? Mr. Lyda?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Nay.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye. Mr. Green, you made the original motion. Are you okay to have this on our next regular meeting?
Yes, I am.
Clerk, if you could show that first.
Mr. President, Mr. Green, would you amend the motion to include 562217, since it was done jointly?
That was 2117. We haven't.
Okay, so.
Moved any further.
We can't.
I'm doing the one in a second.
Of course, if we don't have a lease, we can't sublease. So we probably need a motion to continue to the next regularly scheduled meeting, resolution 5622-17.
First, we want the motion first.
Mr. Corley, if you please, read resolution 5622-17.
This resolution authorizes the mayor to execute a sublease and a community service agreement with Artisan Bluff for the property at 571 Park Avenue, the Old Bluff Park Elementary School building for use by the city for public cultural facilities as an art center, art gallery, and related facilities.
With that, I'm open for a motion.
So moved.
What are we so moving?
To continue resolution 5622-17.
Thank you, sir. Looking for a second.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
We have one nay. Dr. Middlebrooks. Item 15, resolution 5623-17, Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes the mayor to execute a subordination, non-disturbance, and interment agreement and tenant estoppel certificate with RMC Investments LLC regarding 1615 Montgomery Highway, building 3122, for lease at Google Commons.
President, I move for approval of resolution 562317.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. If anybody is familiar with commercial leases, from time to time, a building may be refinanced or whatever, and the tenants are asked to certify that everything provided is true. In this case, this involves the police operations center. It's exactly that. Any comments or questions from the council? Any from the audience? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Item 16, resolution 5624-17, Mr. Corley.
This resolution authorizes the mayor to execute amendment number 1 to the wastewater treatment agreement with Living Water Utilities LLC.
President, I move for approval of resolution 562417.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions or comments from the council? Mr. Long, you had indicated Thursday that they were going to be given a discounted rate because they are responsible for the transportation system to get
Collection system.
get the product to the treatment plant, correct? Is the price that was provided to them something that you verified as appropriate as far as other similar agencies?
Yes, sir. Industry standard for commercial buildings. We don't have a collection system.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions from the council? Any from the audience? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Item 17. We have several resolutions. 5625-17, 5626-17, 5627-17. When it's time for a motion, I would like all three to be included. Mr. Corley, I'll let you start with 25.
This resolution authorizes the mayor to execute a standard project resolution regarding I-459 interstate median crossover protection for 9/20/59 to 2398, 2,398 feet south of Highway 150 with the Alabama Department of Transportation.
26.
This resolution authorizes the mayor to execute a standard project resolution regarding I-459 interstate median crossover protections, guardrail anchors from SR 150 to SR 38, US 280 with the Alabama Department of Transportation.
And 27.
This resolution authorizes the mayor to execute a preliminary engineering agreement regarding sidewalks along SR 150, John Hawkins Parkway, Hopper River Estates Road to SR 3, US 31 with the Alabama Department of Transportation.
Mr. President, I move for the approval of resolutions 562517, 562617, and 562717.
Second.
Obviously, these first two are to make sure that cars don't get from one side of the road to the other. Item 5627 has to do with sidewalks on John Hawkins Parkway. Mr. Long, is this just the engineering portion?
Yes, sir, it's just engineering. It's approximately $62,000 city funds would go towards the sign for a total sign package of almost $300,000.
Is this a budgeted item?
I believe it is, yes, sir.
It's a budgeted item. And when do you believe the actual construction rate will be?
That's the hard question. It'll take several months to go through the selection process and to get contracts out. So I would envision early 18s to start the process.
Very good. Thank you, sir. I have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the council? Any from the audience? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor of these three resolutions, respond with aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Item number 18 is a public hearing. It was continued from the July 17th meeting, the abatement of public nuisance due to weeds and or grass at 1536 Holly Road. Mr. Croy, do you have anything to add?
Yes, this property located at 1536 Holly Road, Victor, Alabama was declared to be a public nuisance by the city council through resolution number 5598-17 on June 19, 2017. Public hearing was held on July 17, 2017 in front of the city council to hear evidence of protest concerning the removal of weeds from this property. This hearing was continued until tonight's meeting to allow the property owner additional time to comply with the requirements. Resolution 562817 declares the weeds and grass located at 1536 Holly Road, Hoover, Alabama as a nuisance and orders the abatement thereof by the city of Hoover as provided under Alabama law.
Open for a motion.
Mr. President, I move for approval of
Wait,
public hearing.
This is a public hearing. Is anybody here to speak on behalf of the owner or somebody to speak as to the problem? Mike, you have anything you'd like to say?
No, sir, I did go to the property today, as the picture shows, there was very minimal progress made. The rear yard, you can see, still has been substantially overgrown, so I don't have a choice but to say it still needs maintenance.
No one else to speak on behalf, one way or the other? Seeing none, we will conclude the public hearing, and Mr. Croy, if you could read resolution 562817.
That was the resolution I just read. You can read it again.
I was just checking, make sure.
It's long.
Making sure you're paying attention.
It's long, but I can read it again if you like.
I heard it first time.
All right, open for a motion.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution 562817.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the council? None from the audience?
Mr. President, I have one question. Did
Yes, sir.
she do anything? I mean, she's pretty adamant that she was gonna,
As you can see in the picture, right as she looked through, some of that very back of your package, she opened the gate and just a very small area was cleared. I mean, it's pretty obvious what she did. Yeah, she did something, but it did not meet anybody, or in my opinion, not substantially wrong. Thank you.
Any other comments or 2917, Mr. Corley, is there supposed to be a public hearing for this one as well?
No.
Okay. With that, if you would read the resolution.
This resolution declares the following properties located in the city of Hoover, and the following addresses as nuisances due to weeds and or high grass thereon, orders of abatement thereof by the city of Hoover as provided under Alabama law. 936 Alford Avenue, Hoover, Alabama. 2105 Camaro Lane, Hoover, Alabama. 3409 Frank Avenue, Hoover, Alabama. 3256 Mockingbird Lane, Hoover, Alabama. And 2541 Wood Meadow Lane, Hoover, Alabama.
President, I move for approval of resolution 562917.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the council?
Mr. President, if I may, sorry to get all excited about abatements, but Mr. Mosley, who's one of my neighbors, is in the audience tonight. We actually spoke before the meeting. We talked about abatements, and the uncomfortable question is, are we still doing this at the city expense? I mean, is this something we're still doing at our expense? We're not passing the cost along to the people who own the property owners. It seems to be a fairly common thing for other cities to do, as Mr. Mosley is aware. You were city councilman in Pleasant Grove for many years. It seems to be a very common thing to recover these costs, and especially with all the rain, I just get concerned that we're doing so much work in people's yards and at great expense, and we're doing that at taxpayer expense.
There's a procedure for us to file a lien, and so we basically wait until there are a certain number of these that have been approved and projects included, and we file those liens at one time in the county courthouse.
Okay. So when's the last time we filed for a lien on one of these activities?
I'm assuming that it was over a year ago.
Okay. So we will eventually get to that, but thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the council? Any from the audience? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed nay, the ayes have it. Item number 20, resolutions 5630, 31, 32, 33, and 34. We can choose to deal with them together or separately, as the body wishes. I guess, just to get it started, well, let's start off with 5630, 17, and see what kind of discussion.
Yes, sir. I believe we would take each of these separately for the
Okay.
examination of public purpose. The following 5 resolutions are a declaration of public purpose regarding drainage repairs. In accomplishing these repairs, the city does not accept perpetual maintenance of the drainage structures being repaired, but instead makes such repairs due to the public purpose that is being served by such repairs. In declaring the public purpose, the city council has also found that the expenditure confers a direct public benefit to a significant part of the public as distinguished from a remote and theoretical benefit. Resolution number 5630-17 authorizes the repair of the drainage structure located at 6572 Quail Run Drive, more specifically, the drainage pipe located in the side yard has fatigued, causing sinkholes in the yard. Repairs are needed to clear, remove, and replace the existing pipe, head walls, inlets, as well as minor asphalt work and erosion control and soil stabilization work. The funds needed to accomplish said repairs are authorized from the Capital Projects Fund in an amount not to exceed $35,000.
Yes, I'll take a motion before we ask for discussion.
Mr. President, as you know, we had a significant amount of discussion on this Thursday night. I know there's been a lot of questions asked since then, and having only had 4 days to review this and the following 4 items, and because we're looking at a cost of $101,000, I would move to continue resolution 5630-17.
Second.
Motion and a second. That would call for no comment. So, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. Resolution 5631-17, Mr. Ford.
This resolution authorizes the repair of drainage structure located at 605 Whitestone Way. More specifically, the drainage structure located in the rear of the property has a metal grate installed over the inlet structure. Repairs are needed to the drainage structure to remove the grate from the inlet structure on this lot. Funds needed to
President, I move to continue Resolution 563117 to the call of the chair. And I would like to also note that the first resolution to the call of the chair, also not the next meeting.
Second.
Are you, rephrasing your second from the earlier motion? Okay, we're gonna need a new second for 563017. Should, he made a motion to next regular meeting, but now he's changing his request to the call of the chair.
Let's go with the second.
Second.
Okay. So,
So does this motion cover both of those resolutions?
That would be my preference.
on this legal.
We either need to re-vote on them separately or take them together to continue both resolutions to the call of the chair.
Yeah, rather than date specific, I want to say call of the chair because I think this is a topic that's going to have greater reach than perhaps 2 weeks could address. So just in that case, I'd rather the chair have the opportunity to make a call.
I just want to, I understand, I just want to confirm for the minutes that both of these items are, that we're voting on both of those to be continued to the call of the chair.
Would you prefer a separate vote?
I think as long as everybody's aware that's what we're voting on in this.
Very good. We have a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. Resolution 5632-17, Mr. Foley.
This resolution authorizes the repair of a drainage structure located at 1808 Napier Drive. More specifically, the drainage structure located in the backyard contains a sunken area behind the drainage ditch caused by deficiencies in the adjacent open channel. Repairs are needed to fill and repair a sinkhole adjacent to the storm ditch, constructing a riprap berm, and making repairs in the open channel. The funds needed to accomplish said repairs are authorized from the capital projects fund with an amount not to exceed $5,000.
Mr. President, I move that resolution 563217 be continued to the call of the chair.
A motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. Mr. Foley, 5633-17.
This resolution authorizes the repair of the drainage structure located at 1812 and 1816 Napier Drive. More specifically, the drainage pipe located in the front yards of 1812 and 1816 Napier Drive. Adjacent to the right-of-way has fatigue under the driveway at 1816 Napier Drive. Repairs are needed to clear, remove, and replace the existing pipe, head walls, driveways, sidewalks, and erosion control and soil stabilization on these two lots. The funds needed to accomplish said repairs are authorized from the capital projects fund in an amount not to exceed $60,000.
Mr. President, I move to continue resolution 563317 to the call of the chair.
Second.
We have a motion, second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. Mr. Corley, 5634-17.
This resolution authorizes the repair of the drainage structure located at 521 Whitestone Way. More specifically, the drainage structure located in the backyard contains a tree adjacent to the storm sewer inlet. Repairs are needed to remove this tree. No municipal funds are needed to accomplish said repairs, as the city's employees will make such repairs. City personnel are authorized to proceed with this repair.
Mr. President, I move to continue resolution 563417 to the call of the chair.
Second.
Motion is second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay.
Nay.
The ayes have it. May have a question or two, comments period. Item 21, resolution 5635-17, Mr. Foley.
This resolution is to set a public hearing for November 6, 2017, to consider the first reading of an ordinance which may annexes 259.2 acres located between Ross Bridge Parkway and Shades Crest Road. This request is named by Elizabeth Vaughn, Executive Director of Freshwater Land Trust, the owner of the property.
Mr. President, I move for approval of resolution 563517.
We have a motion?
Second.
We have a second. Any comment or questions from the council? This is property that's owned by the Freshwater Land Trust, and they could have chosen a number of ways to go, yet they chose that they wanted to be in the city of Hoover, which I think, once again, speaks volumes for how they want their property to be treated as greenway space. I just think that's a questions from the council? Comments from the audience? Seeing and hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Item 22 is motion to approve ABC application, Class 2 package for KPS Food Mart Inc., doing business as Package Store 150, 2798 John Highway Parkway, Suite 126. This is a new application for a previously approved site. Mr. Shaw.
Yes, Mr. President, I would move to approve the application for the ABC application for KPS Food Mart Incorporated.
Motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the council? Any from the audience? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Item 23 is the second reading of ordinance 17-2347. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance approves the annexation of Phase 1C of Fleming parcels 1 and 2, approximately 9 acres, currently located adjacent to and to become a part of the Trace Crossings PUD. This will be a roll call vote.
Mr. President, I move for the adoption of ordinance number 17-2347.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the council?
Mr. Belcher, this is park property, correct?
Are there two more annexations? We have to handle it in this fashion because we are annexing property next to a city. And because of that, we can only annex 50% at a time. So I guess we get down to about 1.5 inches.
Suppose this wants to confirm that it is park property.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Any other comments from the council?
President, if I may for a moment,
Sir.
The process of the Trace Crossings package or suite of votes was a long time, a lot of back and forth and a lot of communication with our community. And tonight we're seeing parkland donated to the city. And I think there's going to be really good things happening in that parkland. So, there's a lot of focus on some of the more controversial things, but it's nice to vote on parkland and see the public good of this plan, and hopefully people will start to see that.
Any comments from the audience? Anything else from the council? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor say aye. Those opposed, nay. Roll call, yeah. Madam Clerk?
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Lighty?
Aye.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Aye.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye. Motion passes. Item 24 is the first reading of ordinance 17-2349. Mr. Corley.
This ordinance approves the annexation of Phase 5, approximately 3 acres of the total 211 acres of Fleming parcels 1 and 2, currently located adjacent to and to become part of the Trace Crossings Planned Unit Development. The second reading and consideration for adoption will be Monday, August 21st, 2017.
All right. Item 25 is a public hearing to consider the request of Mr. Rhett Loveman, PR Horton Inc., representing Chapel Farms Holding Company LLC, to rezone property located along Patton Chapel Road, also known as Douglas Commons, Patton Chapel, pursuant to Alabama Code Section 115285 for Jefferson County A1, RG, and C1, to Hooper PRD, Planned Residential Development District, for a proposed residential development of 4260 single-family residential lots.
Mr. President, I will move to consider this previously tabled item.
Second.
All right, we will hold that just a second and conduct, this is a public hearing, correct, Mr. Floyd?
Yes.
Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of the project? Mr. Loveman.
Yes, thank you for your time. As you know, we came before the council July 17th to ask.
Just to make sure, doing things a little bit different this time. We all know how things started, maybe just talk about where things are.
Sure. So the original presentation was made a few weeks ago. During that time, we had a meeting Councilman Smith, and we tried to incorporate some of his comments and maybe other comments that were circulated among other board members or other council members. And so we have, the new plan has doubled the size of the common area and opened up the community. If you recall where the little hand icon is, there were lots there except for one small area, common area. So we've opened it up. And then if Mr. Martin will scroll down to the third page, we have also in that area done a detail of what it will look like. So you'll have a clubhouse facing the street when you come in, and then you'll have a community park immediately behind the clubhouse, which will be all one open green space. You'll also, of course, have double sidewalks throughout the community and through the park area back over to the other side of the clubhouse. So basically, folks will be able to walk around the community without interruption. They'll be able to get from one cul-de-sac to the other very easily. And hopefully this will, we feel at least, it will give the neighborhood the sense of community we're looking for. The clubhouse will have obviously a heated and cooled space. It'll also have an extended covered patio space too for the residents to enjoy and to gather.
How many square feet anticipate the building?
It'd be between 750 and 1,000 square feet. Nothing, too big, but also it would allow them to have community meetings and, various other parties should they decide to.
Chief Wingate, how many people would be allowed in a 750 square foot building? Oh, your Padres left you. Four, how many lots are remaining?
There are 42 lots.
Okay, 42 lots, figuring anywhere from 2 to 3 people per. Is that gonna be able to satisfy the need for that side of the structure, that side of the structure? Think it would? Thank you, sir. So we started with 42, or ending with 52?
No, sir, we started with 42, we're ending with 42.
That's just what I'm saying.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you said 52. I apologize. No, well, if Mr. Martin will scroll back up, we extended the northeast property line, I guess it's the big east. We extended it back towards the lake, and we were able to save a few lots, but also increase the size of the common area at the same time.
Okay, so how many structures, or how many lots did we start with?
42.
And how many are we ending?
42, but we changed the configure, it's a little over 12 acres now. It was originally right at 12 acres. We moved that east property line by the lake a little further over, and we were able to get 2 more lots in that middle section where it's 35 through 42 that we did not have before.
Sir, I believe that piece of property has already been rezoned commercial.
Yes, sir.
That little sliver has, that is correct.
So it cannot be rezoned tonight.
I understand. I did think about that, thank you. We can move that back over. I mean, in other words, we could keep the original plan, and we would just be giving up 2 lots in the common area. So you have 40 total lots.
Any other questions or comments for this public hearing from the council?
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
concerning property to the north and east of this proposed development, particularly the Green Valley subdivision area, there's a lot of flooding that occurs in this neighborhood. How would this contribute to additional flooding in that area?
I'm not an engineer, so I can't answer that. We would obviously have to, our engineer consultant would have to adhere to the city's guidelines, but I can't answer that.
Mr. Martin, the property shown as a lake to the right, I believe was originally started as a detention pond. Is it your belief that these lots can be angled to the point to where they could all go into that detention pond?
would take an engineer to answer that question. I'm not qualified at this time.
Okay, so you got 5 of them. Mr. Long.
I met with the applicant's engineer, and I made them aware of the drainage sensitivity of this property, and informed them that they will have to do significant remediation, pre and post. Will have to, in other words, undeveloped site generates a certain amount of drainage presently, and your developed site can generate no more than that pre-developed state.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Long, does your pulse ever get above 55?
I'm doing pretty good.
He's not getting excited about it.
Mr. Vaughn, can you put that in layman's terms?
The pre and post, undeveloped property generates a certain amount of drainage in a rainstorm. With the woods, it absorbs a lot, very little flow. And then when you pave it, put it in pipes, it exits that property very quickly, and the peaks are much, much higher. And so they have to contain that water so that their discharge after development matches the discharge curve of the pre-development site.
Any other questions from the council?
I would like to point out, in addition to the zoning issue that was just discussed with part of this encroaching on previously pre-zoned commercial property, with the addition of the common facilities, our zoning ordinance does require conditional use approval for said facilities. So if the council chooses to take action on this tonight, whatever action should be contingent on conditional use approval for the common facilities.
Or would that need to be revisited by?
Please be aware that
Yeah.
that's
Would
an
that
issue.
need to go back to P and Z?
That's correct, and back before this council.
But that's not unusual, right? I mean, we've done that on several developments.
Anybody else want to speak for or against? With that, we will call the public hearing to a close. And, Mr. Corley? I'm sorry.
This would be a motion.
Do I need to move again?
Well, just gonna have Mr. Corley read ordinance 172342.
Yes, this is a motion to consider a previously tabled item. It would be a roll call vote. This ordinance pre-zones property owned by Chapel Farms Holding Company LLC, located along Patton Chapel Road, Douglas Commons, and Patton Chapel, pursuant to Alabama Code Section 115285, from Jefferson County A1, RG, and C1 to Hoover PRD Planned Residential Development District for proposed residential development consisting of 42 60-foot single-family residential lots to be used for age-restricted housing. This pre-zoning was recommended by the city's Planning and Zoning Commission in PC case number Z-0517-09.
I'm open for a motion.
I moved a minute ago to, before I realized it was a hearing, to consider, do you want me to make that motion again?
Sure.
I moved to consider this previously tabled item.
We have a motion and a second. Any comments or questions from the council? Mr. Corley, I believe, referred to 42 lots. I believe it's been reduced to 40 for the purpose of the minutes.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, I apologize.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions or comments from the council? Any from the audience?
Mr. President, just to be clear, we're voting on considering the motion, right?
Yes, we are bringing the item back up for reconsideration. So this, an affirmative vote would be to then take up the ordinance and stuff. So we have a motion, second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed nay, the ayes have it. Now we will take up ordinance 17-2342. Any comments or questions from the council?
Mr. President, I would move to adopt ordinance number 17-2342.
I have a motion and 2 seconds. Anyone that would like to speak to this from the council first, from the audience?
Yes, Mr. President.
Yes.
I've driven around with it, some other ones, these and some other things, and I think we brought this up before in other states, and I'm just not seeing the amenities. And this one, there's one green space that was added with a common area that was significantly augmented, as you mentioned. But you have this lake. I just don't understand why the lake not be incorporated into this property. Does it have any use with commercial property?
From our standpoint, we obviously talked to the property owners about that. It's not feasible for us to purchase the lake and the project wouldn't be financially viable if we had to. So as of now, it's not part of our neighborhood. However, one of the property owners is here tonight and she could answer questions regarding the future of the lake because it's obviously not part of our deal.
I think I'm fine with the answer that you gave.
Any other questions from the council? Any from the audience? Seeing and hearing none, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Lydic?
Hey.
Dr. Middlebrooks?
Nay.
Mr. Posey?
Nay.
Mr. Shaw?
Nay.
Mr. Smith?
Nay. Property is not pre-zoned. I'm going to assume that item 26, the owner would like to withdraw. Item 26.
Well, actually, we did part of that, right? The commercial portion that was a part of this ordinance, so we probably need to proceed with it and change it from all of lot one to a portion of lot. That makes sense.
Well,
Because we actually did pre-zone the
we
commercial.
did, but the property owner may not want to annex any of it. So, I don't know what property owner's wishes are.
I want to make sure I understand the question.
Yes, ma'am. Come on down. I hope your trip was comfortable. Thank you, Carolinas. Yes, ma'am.
Could you repeat the question? So
Okay, at this point, the residential portion has been rejected. The commercial was approved at the previous meeting. So, at this point, we can annex all of it, we can annex the commercial, we can annex none of it.
I think that would be a substantial change to the ordinance, so it would require a new first and second reading if we're gonna do it in part.
Okay? So, at this point, is your recommendation that 26 be withdrawn? Do you have,
That's not my recommendation, it's just the fact that the ordinance would be substantially changed, so it would require a new first and second reading. If we were to amend it to delete the residential portion.
all right, so, apparently, if you want to move forward, we're gonna have to come with another ordinance, and it will be subject to the same notifications as this ordinance was.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. So you can annex it, you're just, the pre-zoning on the residential goes away. That's what you're saying. You can still annex the property and you're just not gonna get the pre-zoning of the residential portion. Is that correct?
If that is the wish of the property.
Other than this.
Right.
Well, my question is, since it was tied to pre-zoning, since the annexation was tied to pre-zoning, could that portion stay?
Our legal staff is pondering the question and
So these be zoned in the county, existing county zoning, just like any other annexation. Yeah, and then, so it'd be the agricultural, Neapolitan split there.
commercial is the same.
Commercial, the agricultural. Yeah.
Mayor, what do you think?
My take on it is, this is one lot, it has not been subdivided yet. To me, it's not, it should all be considered as one lot until the subdivision happens.
Okay.
But, bottom line is, I'm one of 4 owners, and we have legal counsel ourselves, so
Would you
I'm
like
not
to-
in a position right now to,
Would you like to continue to the next regular meeting for item 26?
and what is the or?
Well, item 26 is the actual annexation, but according to our legal team.
Which it wasn't clear, or is the legal team clear on what is the legal team?
It's their understanding, from what I understand, that if we're going to revisit this, it's gonna need a new ordinance.
We may either annex the entire lot,
Right.
or we can continue it.
Okay, if we annex,
We can't amend the ordinance and vote on it tonight, just second reading.
if it was to be annexed, would the commercial rezone apply?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay. So we can,
The balance of the property would be zoned as it is now.
we would come into Hoover as it currently exists in the county, which would be.
But do those exactly translate? I mean, when I look up into
It's gotta
those
equal.
county zoning equals the city.
Yes, ma'am.
Um,
Love to have you in Hoover.
I'm not prepared to say yes to that right now, and
Would you like to continue?
I think the answer to that is yes. I would like to,
All right, the owners have requested a continue.
let me just make sure I understand what I'm saying.
Yes, ma'am.
Because I'm not following it exactly. I am under the impression that because this is one lot, if a portion of it does not get what our request was, we were piggybacking on D.R. Horton, then the commercial end of it is a moot point.
And-
That's the way I understand it.
Unless we bring forward another ordinance, I believe. Right, sister? Because it's subdivision, it's.
Mr.
well,
President.
We voted on the pre-zone, but we didn't vote on the annexation.
Ma'am, I think you're looking at a few different options here. If you continue, you're saying that we could annex the entire property as one piece, as you're saying. It'll come into the city of Hoover as agriculture and commercial.
Okay.
If you withdraw this motion, you could potentially come back to us with a separate ordinance and divide the property into commercial only and leave the proposed residential out of it.
If I had to make a comment on that right now, I would say it is our desire to stay as we are in the county with the current zoning that we have without the D.R. Horton portion in place.
So you want to withdraw?
Yes,
Takes everything to where it is right now,
so where it is right now,
just as it has been.
as it has been, yes.
Okay. We have a request from the applicant and the owner to withdraw ordinance 17-2348. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any conversation from the council? Any from the audience? We'll go ahead and continue this as a roll call vote.
Mr. Green?
Aye.
Mr. Lydic?
Aye.
Councilman Brooks?
Aye.
Mr. Posey?
Aye.
Mr. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Smith?
Aye. Thank you, ma'am. Hopefully we can get back together at some point. Mr. Lyda, payment of bills.
Mr. Smith, we have a nice stack, and I reviewed them all and recommend to be paid in full.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Unless anybody has any comments from the council?
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
I know the majority of people have already left associated with Artists on the Bluff, but I would just like to commend that organization for what they bring to our community and our city. I think it's proven that when our schools and communities embrace the arts, that it's beneficial to all our citizens. They brought a lot to the Bluff Park area. Too often, I think we pit athletics versus arts against one another, and if the school board so chooses to bring it back before us and to the call of the chair, I hope that this council can show that those, the athletics and arts do not have to be opponents of one another, but that we can support and embrace both for the benefit of our city. Just looking at the budget amendment here, item 2, design the net field renovation, $70,000. We didn't really bat an eye on that. So I just want to express my gratitude to the artists on the bluff and what they brought to our community. That's all, Mr. President.
Dr. Middlebrooks, I agree with you completely. This hasn't gone away. There's some questions on the condition of the property as well as whether or not there's any material in the building that could cause health concerns down the road that we need to address, is to include how much money can the city afford to put into this project before it doesn't become financially feasible for the city itself.
Mr. President, if I may, I concur with Dr. Middlebrooks' opinions on the arts, and I think, as I joke about being a city geek and going and seeing the city of Orange Beach when I was down there, we didn't just hang out on the sand. I can tell I'm not the kind of person that gets very tan. I went to saw their National Night Out event, which was held in a cool park that's on the bay, and they have actually built an art gallery there that also doubles as a wedding venue, and they have some other facilities that are even like a kiln for teaching various skills and for teaching other art things. I thought it was very interesting to see that while this question is coming before us. I'm not saying we should do that. I think, Dr. Middlebrooks, I'll just say that this has a potential to be very expensive, and we've got to ask ourselves, what do we want to be spending money on? Is there a more effective way to do this? I think it's our job to parse through these questions and make sure we make the right decision and support the arts with the most effective use of public funds that we can.
Mr. President, I was under the impression there was a motion, a second, to payment of bills, and somehow we got our arts and athletics.
Well, yeah, I concur. That's all right. We'll come back to those comments and questions for sure. All in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed nay.
My apologies, Mr. Knight.
No, that's fine. I thought maybe there was something being paid that was gonna help the family or something. All right, back to comments and questions.
Mr. President, if I may, I just want everyone to understand that, you know, I understand the meeting that was referenced between the school board and the council. Was not able to attend that meeting because of work, and I do not know fully what was brought up at the meeting. Well, all we were asking here was to continue for a 2-week span to look at some data that came in today and was presented to us today about, you know, the condition of the building, the cost of utilities, things like that. You know, true costs that would impact your tax dollars and how we spend those. The idea of continuing one meeting was not to say no to the arts and not to say put this arts versus athletics ideology together. We were simply saying we wanted 2 weeks to look at it. That was why I voted for that, and I think that's why the majority of the council voted for that. Not to pit the two entities against each other in any form or fashion, and not to say no to the project, just to look at some more data.
Mr. President, would you entertain the introduction of a couple of scouts that are here in the chamber tonight and have been incredibly patient and attentive? I've watched both of you and you've paid great attention, so if you don't mind, Mr. President,
They picked a good night to be here. Why don't you get up and introduce yourself, please? What merit badge are you working on? What's your rank?
I'm Wesley Westone, I'm Life Scout. I'm working my last merit badge for Eagle Pacific Community.
I'm Bates Whetstone. I'm getting the citizenship and community merit badge so I can finish my star merit.
Excellent. What troop are you with?
367.
You meet where?
River Station, I'm Memphis.
All right.
you have a brother at Naval Academy, by chance?
Yes, sir.
You gonna follow?
Probably not.
This is your last merit badge for your Eagle. Have you determined what your Eagle project project's gonna be in?
Actually, I finished it.
Well, that's quick.
Put a dog pit at Mountain Baptist Church.
Thank you. That's great. Great. Man, you just gotta put everything together. Been there, done that. Welcome. Early.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to take a minute to congratulate Police Chief Gerzis on an honor he recently received. The National Association of School Resource Officers named its Safe Schools Leadership Award after Chief Gerzis, and he was also selected as one of the 4 recipients of this year's award. Congratulations, Chief.
Thank you.
And with that, Weaver City Schools, along with the SRO program, is first in Alabama and 5th in the country as far as safety. And it can only be done through the hard work of yourself and your SRO staff, as well as the department as a whole. Thank you, sir. Any other comments or questions? Before we get to the public, Robin, take a seat. Time yet? No, we got 30 minutes before we have that seat. Mr. Corley, just for the public's understanding as well as ours, can you identify what comprises a public purpose when it comes to spending taxpayer funds on private property?
Yes, sir, Mr. President, there's been a lot written about public purpose by our Alabama Supreme Court and the Attorney General. And one of the Supreme Court opinions that are on point, the court says that the paramount test should be whether the expenditure confers a direct public benefit of a reasonably general character, that is to say, to a significant part of the public, as distinguished from a remote and theoretical benefit.
Mr. Corley, we're approaching 90,000 residents in the city of Hoover. What qualifies as substantial?
That's a good question, and the courts and the Attorney General have said that it is a finding of fact that the council can make to determine a public purpose, and the courts generally give deference to the city council in making those determinations. However, there's case law that, expounds on that, and I provided a lengthy article from the League of Municipalities that defines public purpose further. And I can elaborate on that a little bit, but it's generally to that it confers a benefit to a significant part of the public.
Mr. Rice, you think there'd be any benefit of putting this document on the city website in case the public would like to see it, since we're getting ready to get heavy into those discussions, not just for these projects, but probably many more to come? Mr. Corley, one last question. To keep from being accused of spending taxpayer property funds on one single property owner or taxpayer, how many properties should be involved in the remediation?
I'm not sure I completely understand the question, but it could be on one property that benefits a significant amount of the public. So if there's a project that is, and we're only talking about projects on private property here, but if it conferred a benefit, like if there was a private, even thinking of a hypothetical that affected a large portion of the public, then you could do the work on a single property.
Okay, and in what way would that become substantial if the work is done on a single property?
In terms of
Just trying to
provide,
education.
if it caused flooding that affected a large number of homes and rights of way, or if there was, of course, in a private easement, that's not the case because the city doesn't have an obligation to maintain private easements or private drainage facilities, but it's just a public purpose task.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions from the council before we go to Mr. Schultz?
And I would ask one, at what point legally are we required to, how does that, is it because it ranges its on right of way? I know there's some lines blurred and some confusion as to what the city owns that we are responsible for.
Right, if it's in the public right of way, then absolutely.
Okay. That's kind of the.
If it affects the public right of way, if it causes water, for instance, to back up into a public right of way, you can make a remediation to prevent that from happening, or prevent erosion or failure of a public right of way. If the city has accepted maintenance, and my understanding is the city has not accepted maintenance of private easements in the city. There are some limited situations where the city may have accepted easement, for, you know, for maintenance. And finally, if none of those tests are met, then it falls to the public purpose test.
Perhaps at the next meeting, you could, or Mr. Martin, we could identify what properties within Hoover are liabilities for these type of repairs sit on the city's shoulders. So we can identify what areas that are absolutely the city's responsibility versus that of the private property owner for the public purpose. We obviously will decide at the time of presentation whether or not it meets the body's definitions, I guess. So,
Speaking in generalities or specific projects?
I think in generalities, we'd be fine. Mayor, with my understanding of what Mr. Corley has said, and with what at least one of the news stations has put out, there is an assumption that the city is responsible for all pipes and all drainage systems within the city. And my understanding that's not completely true. The majority of that liability falls on the property owner. It's just whether or not, because of this public purpose, that this council is using for the public good compared to previous administrations. I'm saying it's a bad thing, I think it's a good thing. But I just want, I guess, Mr. Corley to verify, or Mr. Martin to verify at the next meeting, if there are any areas of Hoover that the city truly owns the liability, then we can understand that. Okay? That makes sense? Thank you, sir. All right, Robin, come on down.
I'm Robin Schultz, 348 Albemarle Drive, Hoover, Alabama. We talked earlier today about the Artists of the Bluff facility. I talked to many of you over this weekend regarding that particular facility. The response I got was, we need to get a little more information. The information I received from Dr. Murphy earlier was that this has been going on since May. So we have a work session on Thursday. We don't have the information which should have been made available on Thursday. Everything that you asked for was a legitimate question. But those questions shouldn't have come up on Thursday. Those questions should have come up when the attorneys for both sides started to sit down and work out the details. So within the next 2 weeks, I hope that this body does two things. Number one, do your homework. Okay, that facility, I have spent the last 6 years at that facility from the time that former Mayor Patelis and former Superintendent Craig made a verbal agreement to have it be a joint venture between the city and the school, which there is nothing written about it, it was just a verbal agreement, to the point where Linda Williams pretty much worked her fingers to the bone to make it one of the most admired facilities in not only the state of Alabama, but in the southeastern United States, single-handedly. So I'd like all of you to take a trip down there, to actually walk through the facility and see what it is that you're voting on. You're not voting on a building that you're going to take, where a lease is being taken over. You're voting on a facility that represents the city of Hoover that already is known throughout the United States. Does it need work? Yep. It needs work because it hasn't been maintained. It hasn't been maintained because there hasn't been any funding provided to the school system by the city in order to maintain it. So yeah, it's gonna need some work, okay? It's the responsibility of the city at some point to say, what are we gonna do with this facility? Is it going to represent, as Dr. Millbrook said, an art facility? Earlier today on item 11, you voted to spend $50,000 on the Leadership Council. There are 12 members on that Leadership Council. Mr. Smith, you said that we're nearing 90,000 residents. Of those 12 members of the Leadership Council, do you all know who sits on them? 6 of them are the same names that we see every single time. 50% of those members that sit on that council are people that we see every single time in every single report. The same old names. We got 90,000 people to choose from, and we choose the same ones over and over and over again. Come on.
I've had no opportunity to participate.
Okay, fair enough. But you voted on $50,000 to spend on that. Okay, fair enough. But you still looked at it. Okay, 50 grand is a lot of money, no matter how you cut it. But we didn't bat an eye, right? And we don't even know who the members are. But now you're asking for the items at Artists on the Bluff, as you should. I have zero problem with that. But over the next 2 weeks, please visit the facility. Please talk to those of us that have been very involved with the facility. Come look at it. It's an awesome place. It is the oldest building in the city of Hoover. It was built in 1923. A public building in the city of Hoover. Built in 1923. Pretty neat. And then in 2 weeks, when you vote on it, Dr. Murphy has extended 2 weeks. But we don't want her to pull it. Vote on it. It may require an investment on our part, but it's going to be worth the investment. Thank you very much.
Ms. Schultz, I can't speak for anyone else, but just today, I was told that there's asbestos. And we need to find out what the remediation of that asbestos is going to cost.
Fair enough. And one other thing that I left off, if the lease between the city and the Artists on the Bluff, today was the first time that the members of Artists on the Bluff actually saw the lease. I think they need to at least be privy to what they're going to be signing. They almost passed something that they didn't even get a chance to look at. If the attorneys could at least work with the board on that, that would be a fair thing as well. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may, Robin, there are some, like you said, there's questions that we need to ask and we need answered. It is a lot easier to ask those questions and answer those questions, say at the end of the meeting, where we can just walk out and say, hey, I got a question for you. The board member and the superintendent left right after the vote. We're going through a conduit to speak to them because we have to, obviously. You know, one of the questions I want to ask is, okay, if this is physically attached and is used as part of Bluff Park Elementary, why did you not fix the roof on this building last year when you put a roof on the other part of the school building? Because they do use part of it for after school care. Questions like that, and maybe we need to have another joint meeting where everyone's there. I mean, maybe that's what needs to happen. But a conduit to ask these questions and have them answered in a timely manner. We could have discussed that tonight, but they left. They're gone. And now we've got to go chase them down and ask the questions or submit them through the mayor's office to get them answered. But you are right that we do need to get this information there. And understand, like I said before, it has nothing to do with the program. The program is wonderful. It has nothing to do with the sliding against the arts. I'll happen to love the arts and athletics equally. We just have to make the best decision for everyone possible, and we have to have all the facts to do so.
And I don't disagree with you. I was able to find out the roof question in 30 minutes today. I made one phone call and was able to speak to the school, and they called me back and they were able to answer the questions. It was fairly quick. As to why they didn't do the roof, it wasn't budgeted. It was They only have so much. Right now, they're doing 2 schools. They're doing Rocky Ridge and doing Simmons. They're doing a partial roof on both of those. So it's a question of was it budgeted and can they pay it? And again, Dr. Murphy was brought in to fix something that was broken, something that was hemorrhaging money. She's done a pretty good job. We've gone from a deficit to a surplus in a span of 3 years. So at some point, though, something has to give, and she had to make some tough decisions. She cut several programs that were not really programs that I was in favor of her cutting, but she didn't come here to win a popularity contest, and she came here to fix something that was broken.
Mr. President?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Posey, you mentioned that Dr. Murphy and the board member left. I would like to add that when she stood up, she made herself available to answer any questions we might have. However, this body chose to continue, therefore we didn't have any discussion on it. But she did make herself available tonight, should we chose to have discussion on the matter, to answer any questions we had.
Mr. President, if I could,
Yes,
to your point about the age of the building, it might be, I think Rocky Ridge is the oldest public building, go Rockets, but it's probably pretty close in there. That gets to the crux of the question I have. I didn't see anything in the contract that lets the city terminate the lease early, so we're committing to that 7-year term. With a building that old, you get into the hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're responsible for. And would we want to, if the program is again, we value the arts, if the program is important, where do we want the money going to? Do we want it going supporting the program or fixing up an old building that isn't really the city's building? These are the questions we have to ask, and I don't know that we could have covered that in the 4 days, including the weekend, all leading up to this.
And I think it's a fair question. The problem that you have here is that particular building is a historical site. So regardless of who takes care of it, it still needs to be taken care of. And it is a very, very valuable asset in Bluff Park. I can't answer about the Rocky Ridge part. I'll be more than happy to do some research on it. But either way, it's going to have to get paid, you know? And the question is going to be, who foots the bill? It's not going anywhere. That particular building is not going anywhere. You know, it will be there. It's a very important part of Bluff Park. Whether or not it houses artists on Bluff, you know, that's up to you.
I have a question for Mr. White. Because there's going to be a new lease between the city and the school system, is the city responsible for bringing that building up to code, electrically?
Anything through our walkthrough, we identified some issues that were considered hazardous, and we did not get full access to all areas. So some of the electrical issues were deemed hazardous.
So that's a yes?
That is a yes.
Okay. So we're going to have to bring it up to code as well.
Mr. President.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Schultz, is there any amount that we have no idea what the total, what the roof, what the electric, what the AC, we have no idea. Is there any, if it's $5 million, if it's 10, I mean, is there any amount that you think the council should say, hey, we're at a point that we can't handle that with taxpayers' dollars? You're saying that we just need to make this happen. Well, there may be a point that we can't make this happen and be fair to the rest of the community.
We voted $80 million a couple of years ago.
But this is.
But seriously, I don't know the answer to that, Mr. Green. I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either, but I'm just asking you, the way you phrased it, we've got to make this happen. I don't know that we can make it happen. We're gonna do the very best we can. But we have no idea, this body tonight has no idea, whether it's $1 million, $100,000.
Right now.
At some point, we have to say, that's too much taxpayers' dollars to invest in that building.
And we should have thought about that back in 2011 when they were approached by the former administration and said, make that happen. Right now, in man hours alone.
We're not there now.
I'm sorry?
We're not there now. We're here now.
I understand that. Okay. But you were here back then, Mr. Smith, you were, the rest of you were not, okay? But at that time, they were approached by the city and the school and said, make it happen. In the meanwhile, $500,000.
They approached the city and requested funding. Some approached Ms. Williams and others approached the council and mayor at that time to support the project. We didn't go to them, we didn't go search somebody out. It's there and I support it, and I want to support it as much as we financially feel suitable. But that section of history is a little different from the way you remember it.
Well, that section of history is maybe a little different from the way that it was relayed to me. You know, I would not, I would rephrase it that way. The way that it was relayed to me is the way that I've just related to you. And so, but to answer Mr. Green's question, I don't know the answer to that, you know? But at some point, we need to, as a city, look at the facility and say, what are we going to do with it? You know? And I think it's very fair that over the next 2 weeks, that we devote whatever resources we can to finding out the answer to that, so that we can have that in 2 weeks we have an answer to that question. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. You come down, provide your name and address, and if you want to come sit down front, you can be next, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Excuse me, thank you for your time and attention. My name is Sharon Tinsley, and I live at 3240 Oriole Drive in Green Valley. I just want to say first, we appreciate the new sidewalks around Green Valley Elementary, and we also appreciate the attention that you're going to be giving the flooding in our neighborhood over the coming weeks. I'm here with a couple of my neighbors from Oriole Drive. I'm here with Annette and Kara and Gail Stevens, and we've been fortunate not to experience that, but thank you on behalf of our neighbors. I'm particularly here this evening to talk about Star Lake. We were recently afforded the opportunity to look at some potential plans for improving Star Lake, and again, we appreciate the facelift that our little neighborhood lake is going to get as well. Our concern is about the addition of food trucks and now the sale of retail items, clothing, and gift items at the lake. And initially, this was all started as a social media effort to have food trucks come to the lake, and I think we were all very excited about it, but it seems to be getting somewhat out of control. And we just hope that going forward, when planning is done for the lake, that there could also be some kind of committee developed. We're unfortunate, not like Rossbridge and some of the other communities. We don't have covenants. We don't have a committee in the neighborhood because our street, we're one of the oldest streets, and my house dates back to 1967. So whatever effort happens in there is community driven. But we would like to see some sort of rules put in place for the frequency of the trucks and the kinds of things that can be sold around the lake. We don't want to see it become a fairground with a midway, if you understand what I'm talking about. We would also like for there to be given, for Sertoma Park to be given some serious consideration, and maybe some of the effort that's being considered to be directed at Star Lake could also split the money and direct some of it at Sertoma as well, because there's already electricity there, there are already pavilions, there are already restrooms and playground equipment, which is what a lot of the new families in the neighborhood have asked for. And we are excited to have the influx of new young families in our neighborhood, but we would just like some mechanism for oversight of what kind of activities go on at the lake. Is that fair, ladies?
Yeah, I would just like to point
Please
out.
come down. People are watching at home. You need to make sure they get to hear you.
I just would like to point out that there are many residents that are not informed. They don't do social media. These ladies, these families started the garden club. They decorated the lake for years and years and years. And this all started with social media, and people are informed by social media. These folks don't even go to their computer every day. So the way it's gotten out of hand has been unfair to those that are shocked by looking out their front, and they don't know what to do about it. It's just, there's a lot going on, and it's that out of control is a strong major concern. I don't know how to help the elderly that are concerned. I don't know. I've just asked them to give the city a call.
May I ask a question? I get the notifications on social media, and it seems to be once a month. Is that street fair, I think they
Yeah.
call it. It seems to be a monthly event, so we're talking about 12 out of 365 days at max. Is it more than that?
It's more than that.
Yeah.
It's now, if I can address you from
You
here.
gotta, no, ma'am, you need to come back down so those at home can hear you.
I think that's some of the root of our concern is it was initially supposed to be one night a month that everyone was excited about, but now there's a farmer's market on a weekly basis. There are sometimes Saturday and Sunday morning donuts and coffee trucks, and an ice cream truck that's been there on afternoons, just announced that it was going to be down there. One of the reasons I think a lot of us got upset recently is because one of the neighbors said that the ice cream truck had a generator running it ran over a weekend for 10 hours over the course of 2 days very near their home, and it was very loud. And so going back to my request for some kind of oversight ordinances to how these sort of things are conducted, that some noise abatement or noise considerations should be included.
And with that, the permission to allow, say, for example, outside of the Thursday night food truck, for one individual to give permission to a popsicle vendor to come and park on that curb is just, I've never seen anything like that in Hoover before. It really concerns me that one person can just take over this and make the decision to say, and publicly stated on social media, they asked, they did very well down there, and I gave them permission. I just think that's unfair to all the residents. You know, you could drive your car down there and enjoy all that, but when you leave, us that go to our mailbox and see all of the trash bellowing out of the garbage cans, I mean, the picnic tables, it looks like a food court down there now, because we needed picnic tables to accommodate all of this gathering at the lake. It's wonderful to have a sense of community. It's gotten out of hand, and somebody really needs to help us control this some way.
I think we missed out on your name and address in the beginning. You said that.
Annette Cara, I live at 3236 Oriole. Been a Hoover resident for 35 years, but been in the Green Valley area for a long time now.
Thank you. Mr. Leiter, I know that you work heavily on the food truck ordinance. How does it address the retail sale of hard goods not to be considered food or drink?
The ordinance we adopted last year was for mobile food units only, and it did not address non-food items.
So if somebody is selling that in a residential area, it is opposite of the zoning, correct?
That would be a question for P and Z colleague.
That's not fair.
Should have come back tomorrow. If, as they're saying, they have a street fair environment where people are selling hard goods other than food and non-alcoholic beverages, is it not a violation of the zoning ordinance?
Based on my understanding, it would be, maybe Mac or one of them can comment that. I know that the source of their authority to be on these public areas comes from the city. They have to have permission of landowner. We grant that, I guess, implicitly. So, right, and so there would be some method for enforcement of these kind of things through maybe Parks and Rec, giving them, if you're gonna be on park territory or that. But,
Well, I don't know if you're aware, but there are pop-up tents, and there are some ladies that are baking breads and certain baked goods and jarred goods and that kind of thing.
I believe that they're not operating out of a truck.
No, sir, they are bringing their own table, and there's a pop-up tent. It's not very attractive.
I do think that the ordinance addresses that.
There's some beautiful homes that face that lake, and the people that own those homes, they don't have a choice but to look at it. They don't have a choice but to sit on their porch and smell it. It's too small of an area for the amount that it draws. And we suggested the park behind the school, but it was not the ambiance that everybody was looking for. But personally, I'm concerned about the safety. You get all those trucks together, and you've got kids playing, and parents are talking, go in between those trucks and a car going on Starlight Drive. It needs to be attended to. It bothers me. There's been some other things down at the lake I've, been concerned about. The test driving of cars and how fast they go back there and you walk and worry. People strolling babies and all, there's a lot, but it just seems to be so much now that we need some help. We need the city to help control some of this.
I've got a nephew who used to buy heroin there under the trees. Fortunately, he lives in Utah. Mayor,
Now, that's definitely against the ordinance.
think possibly
You have a heroin truck.
you and Mr. Rice and staff can see about enforcing whatever issues are in violation at Star Lake. May require somebody being there on a Saturday. Overtime, sometimes.
Mr. President, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
We've been talking about a neighborhood
Almost
viability.
pizza time.
We've been talking about neighborhood viability committee for, I don't know, January? Are we close to that? Are we close to getting that? It seemed like it would address these issues.
I'm waiting to receive the final skeletal review from our legal team, and I sorely need the help of members of this body to determine how the citizens are gonna participate, whether they're gonna be members, or it's just gonna be a committee of council and or staff, and how we do that. And I think that we could probably get it taken care of before the end of October. Yes, ma'am, come on down, name and address, please. Nice crimson red.
I'm Sandra Fuller. I live at 612 Founders Park Drive, Hoover. And I am a resident, teacher, artist at Artist on the Bluff. And I'm disappointed that others left without hearing this last commentary that we have had. I've been there 2 years now. When I came to Artist on the Bluff, I wanted to be there so badly. I have been a teacher and an artist for 100 years. And it was important for me to find a place that I could do and practice my craft with the people who I would like to make an impact on. Predominantly our young people, our children with special needs, all of those who do not have the physique or the desire to be athletes. There are so many of us that want to express how important the arts are, not just for me, a painting, drawing instructor, but the other arts. There are those who dance, there are those who are in drama. We had some of those wonderful students recognized tonight. When I came to Artist on the Bluff, I had applied for a space 2 years prior, and there was nothing available. I found out just by accident from another one of the residents that someone was going to be moving, and perhaps I might hurry on and get their space if I could possibly do it. I went into that space knowing full well that there's no way I could have a classroom there. I scraped the tiles off the floor and sealed up the best I could. I didn't bother the ceiling, but I put 2 coats of paint on the walls. I got cabinetry. I got tables. I stripped tables that had been there that had paint and such on them. I worked so hard to do that. I now have around 28 students every week. Sometimes I have other private students. Those are classrooms. There are 7 or 8 other teachers like myself who are as dedicated to these young people as we can be. We take into consideration that we are the ones who are responsible. My husband, Gene, he cleans the bathrooms. He takes out the garbage. He works in the gardens and the yards as best we can. He's fertilized the grass. He's put down the sod. I am there and do as much as I can. So do the other residents who were there. We take care of the place. I can see when you're talking about maintenance and getting things completely in tip-top code shape. We have been performing in that atmosphere. I have 2 plugs in my whole room that supply hair dryers for doing this, other things for doing that, the special lights that are needed. I have an air conditioner that is broken. I turn on the fans and my 2 plugs, and we just keep going. But we would certainly love to have a little bit of help. It wouldn't have to come all at one time. If we could just have, make sure the eave of the roof doesn't fall down in the front, it would look a little better and things like that. And I know about the roof situation. The people next to me put tarps on their computers and their artwork and their labs when they leave at night because they're afraid that it's going to rain in, and there's been buckets before. They've gone up and put in the big blue tarps that you put on over the trucks to keep the waters from coming in. We really need some help, and it is a tremendous venue. I can tell you from the hundreds of children who came there this summer, just this summer, they come all the time, to be able to feel good about themselves, to be able to express how they feel, and especially the special students that we have that come from the Exceptional Foundation. There are others that come into Hoover because of our art venue up there. So I would just like to say for you to take it into consideration, think about what we do as artists, as the art community. There are 14 or 15 of us who are up there teaching. We have people with PhDs who are up there teaching. We have those of us who just are passionate. So, and I teach 5 days a week up there, and I love it. It's just one of those things that if you are passionate about the arts, it's what you have to do.
One thing to take the school system aside is that Artists on the Bluff has never offered to pay any portion of the utilities.
They've never what?
They've never offered to pay any portion of the utilities since inception. And that is a big deal for them. That's a $60,000 plus cost to the school system.
Well,
that really Artists on the Bluff should be able to handle the electricity.
with the rents that we have to pay, we have to really take in, the students. We have always felt, those of us who are residents there, we've never been given, we as residents have never been given a breakdown of what the utilities are, or special things like don't teach in the summer because air conditioning costs a lot. I don't have one right now. But, those are the kinds of things that we are not privy to, but I'm here not knowing how much you have to spend, how much has been spent, or what the particulars are. As my husband said, I leave the accounting to him because I'm an artist.
He's one of those PhDs that takes out the garbage.
Yes.
We
But
appreciate your thoughts.
I would just like to be able to
Yes, ma'am.
thank you for
Thank
this
you.
consideration, and please give our kids
We're gonna give it every due diligence.
every consideration. Again, it doesn't have to be all at once.
Thank you. I
Thank
think
you.
Mr. Singer wants to be next, or was there a gentleman ahead? Was there a gentleman ahead of you, Mr. Singer? The gentleman on the end, do you want to speak? Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, Council. Paul Perry, 609 Whitestone Way. I just want to put in front of the council, I appreciate the continued conversation you had, reading what public purpose was, that was appreciative. I'd like to see that there is a lot of conversation going on. I make myself available to the council at any time to help with these conversations, if at all possible, as a concerned citizen of this city.
Scouts don't leave yet, it's just not getting excited.
Oh, don't worry. I just want to say that the word that was used earlier was significant. I think does it have a significant effect on, or does it have an effect on a significant amount of the residents? At being at 609, 605 is above me, 521, 512 is way above me. The easement, every pipe that is blocked ends up in my backyard. And I think that's the consideration of significant that maybe the council needs to think about when they're having these discussions, because it's not just one pipe. You can't separate the pipes. The pipes are all together. So
Because it was continued, you didn't get to see that presentation. And
understood.
basically making this presentation for your need. And that will be brought up in a timely manner.
Okay. I just wanted to, when I heard the word significant, I just wanted to kind of put that out there that
Yeah, you can surely speak to significant, it's not for that you don't make a presentation on your particular property.
I wasn't trying to make one on my property. I was trying to make one on general as a whole. But I apologize for making it sound like it was my property. I was just trying to speak to significant. So, council, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Corley, maybe you could help us with significant now.
I'm going to speak two different sides.
Address, please.
Arnold Singer, 613 River Haven Place. Very briefly, I would like to thank the fabulous Hoover Fire Department and paramedics who responded to a 911 call with regard to myself, and turned out to be positional vertigo. But Chief Wingate, when I was speaking with him earlier this evening, he remembered the fact that that 911 call was made and asked how I was doing, so I appreciate that. I'm now going to reintroduce myself, Arnold Singer, President of the Hoover Historical Society, 571 Park Avenue. One of the things that hit me as the conversations were going on with regard to money is we are a city. We like to think of ourselves as a very unique city who combine a lot of the best elements and do things really well. From a cultural point of view, our library is number 2 library in the country. The support that this community has given to Aldrich Gardens, which could have been 30 acres of apartments, is a respite place, a fabulous place. The city supports it, and I'm very proud of it. I think Artists on the Bluff represents another cornerstone that some investment should be made, and we shouldn't be too cheap about it. But it's an important element that makes our city a vibrant city. Switching over still a little bit further, the Hoover Historical Society was formed in 1989. It's a 501c3. In early 1996, Jack Crouch, president of the Historical Society, began conversations with Mayor Skinner with regard to a permanent home for the Historical Society. In November of 1996, there was a meeting at the Oak Bluff Park School attended by Dr. Farr, the school superintendent, Mayor Skinner, Councilman Skelton, and Councilwoman McCollum. Also in attendance, but not part of the formal meeting, were Linda Williams and the principal of the North Park Elementary School. At that time, it was agreed that the former library at the old North Park School, which was at that point occupied by the director of the community school, which was Linda Williams, would be vacated from that area, and the Historical Society moved in. In March of 1997, there was the ribbon cutting. Now, also in 1996, the Hoover Historical Society was given a log cabin from the Wilsonville area in Shelby County, which the fabulous Hoover Public Works Department dismantled that log cabin and the outbuildings, transported and re-erected it behind the Blood Park School. That log cabin is in pristine condition. It is a wonder. We had approximately 600 people attend during this past year. We had all the first graders and all the fourth graders from the Brook Park Elementary School. We had children from Prince of Peace Church, from their school. We had homeschool children and their parents. And we had a church group as well as, and these were with craftspeople. It's an educational thing, and we appreciate the support that we get from the city council, which for years has been steady at $5,000, and it's primarily for this kind of outreach. As you consider the agreements with regard to Artists on the Bluff and the old school, I think consideration should be given to having a separate community service agreement with the Hoover Historical Society, that the agreement should include the metes and bounds of the land that's occupied by the log cabin and the several outbuildings, so that it all comes over at one point. And then, as I say, a separate
Mr. Singer, you're aware that at this time, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Rice, Mr. Mayor, the agreement currently in the hands of the council does not include that property.
and that's why I'm speaking of it. I would have been speaking, actually, after Thursday evening's meeting, I went and spoke with the city attorney, Mr. Corley, and brought up about the metes and bounds. I also sent an email to Alan Rice along the same regard. It wasn't until I saw the packet that was posted on Facebook by Dr. Middlebrooks, where I saw the content and there was nothing at all mentioned about that. So, please give consideration for the Hoover Historical Society.
It's my understanding that the reason that it wasn't included is they're looking at building in other sections of the school on that same property. That's why they don't want to release it.
Good. I'm glad you raised that particular point. As I mentioned earlier.
Mr. President, can I have pepperoni on my pizza? Sorry.
Where's Ms. Ellen?
Second.
She was gonna be in charge of the pizza. She said she was on her credit card.
I think I asked about those two parcels at the Thursday meeting. I'm pretty sure I did, because the field was included, the field with the track around it, that used to be, is also part of the old school property.
And the thing is, just the same way that Public Works moved it from one county to another, it could be moved to another location under the same provision. If they're looking to expand that building, great, give us some notice, but in the meantime, we're there, we're recognized.
told me about his website, and said, check it out, and I went to it one day, and he was running on getting, that older neighborhood, like I was, maybe brought up to date, and somebody had some examples of some older run down homes, and you scroll down, and see my home on there, the one that he aspired for the home to look like.
Yeah, now you're headed another direction.
Yeah, I was not even looking right down, thinking. But anyway, recently, I'm sure you've heard plenty about the flooding issues, and it's something that, it's not a long-term rain issue, this is a flash flood type of issue. I understand that water has to go somewhere, and sometimes, but it's getting worse. And my neighbor, Chris Tan, is here, and my other neighbor, 3501 Wisteria, could not make it today because they're an elderly couple, and he fell his hip recently, that they really wanted to be here. But we're looking at maps and everything, and I see how much water we have to go. And I hear what the attorney saying earlier about, the significant issue. And that word and everything is a significant problem for the community and for Hoover, not just my house alone. And if it was just my house.
Have you contacted the city engineer to have your name?
Mr. Long came out,
Very good.
talked with us last week. And every house on my street, from Rocky Ridge Road all the way down to the end of Blockhaven Drive, 11 houses, every single one of them were affected significantly. Every time now that we get any type of really significant rain in a short period of time, I'm spending the next 2 days taking off work to fill up all my fence and replace it and everything. And this is an issue because we have a drainage ditch that runs behind, and the city engineers use that when they are approving anything. The water that comes off of the slips at Rocky Ridge, the apartments on Rocky Ridge Road, the water gushes off of there, and it all has to come through one drainage ditch, and it floods all 11 houses, plus 2 houses every single time on Rocky Ridge Road.
At the risk of sounding disrespectful, I know you're making a case for your property and those around you. I'm sure that since you made the city engineer aware that the city staff and the city engineer are working on projects that need to be dealt with before we get the city's new drainage policy put together and enforced. So I would say that at this point, you're at an intersection where you need to hear back from staff. That we appreciate your speaking this evening, but I don't know that it's going to better your situation.
Okay, fair enough. I don't do anything at all, and it's definitely not going to get fixed,
That's understood, and you've made the city aware, and at this point, it's up to staff to bring the issue as they have others. There's only so much money in the bank, you probably spend all of it just on drainage.
That's fine, too, we do that.
Mayor's working on the budget and staff, I'm sure they would put mine in email.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Good evening, my name is Vincent Pitts, 1812 Napier Drive. I actually live with a sinkhole. So that's something that's on my property. I know we've all got opinions. He's got a case for his house. I'm not here to make a case for my house. I'm just here to talk about, the fact that I appreciate the mayor and his staff, responding to the issues that exist. These aren't issues that came up 4 weeks ago, that you guys referenced in terms of, not being able to make a concrete decision because you've only discussed them for the past 4 days or so. I moved in 2015 into a home that my wife and I purchased, and it was an issue then. I think it was an issue before that, so the issues are existing issues. And I know that we do live in a section that's an older section of Hoover, but I do appreciate the fact that you've responded. I appreciate that you've considered it. What I consider significant is probably not what you consider significant. I got a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, and they don't need to be playing around here. So, and they know. We've told them, hey, stay out of there. But it's still still a concern. Every time I push the lawnmower, you know, if I don't get off the throttle, it's going in a hole. So those things are just things that should be considered. And I also want to touch on, you know, when we're talking about a consulting firm that we approved $150,000 for to talk about standards for our neighborhoods. What are those standards? Are those standards not driving by a street in Hoover and seeing a sinkhole in somebody's yard? I can show you the pictures of the home when I bought it, and I can show you pictures now. And I can show you what I've done to make sure that my home is a quality representation of my family and Hoover. And I can also show you where that will help you when you assess my property when it comes time to tax revenue. Okay? But in terms of resale value and in terms of assessment value, I can't help it if there's a big hole in my front yard. It's a difficult spot to be in. Now, you know, if it's determined that you're not responsible and you don't want to do anything, then it would be up to me to be responsible to fix it, right? At that point, you know, there's no, I'll do what I gotta do to fix it. You know, this is a non-disclosure, buyer beware state. Pour some concrete in there, jam it up, and what was my problem is now the person above me's problem. Or below me. You know, and I'm not here to get into legal semantics and talk about, well, you have to get a permit for that. Well, I understand. So if I get permission, then actually you would be responsible for it. But, you know, so that, I'm not going back and forth with that. I'm just saying, you know, when people don't do things the right way and they're not done the right way, or somebody goes and pours ready mix down a pipe, corrugated aluminum pipe, which has been done, and I don't know if it's the city or if it was the previous owner, I have no idea. But that's not how you fix drainage problems, by mixing a wheelbarrow full of concrete and throwing it down a pipe. So it's just, that's not a way to fix them. And then to the issue of, you know, I don't think it's a significant, I think what's significant is water flow. You know, if it doesn't matter where, if drainage is gonna fail, it's gonna fail. It doesn't have to do whether it's on my property or not my property. Because if it fails on the person below me, and there's a sink issue, and then it just puddles and pools, and then it's gonna run out into the road, and then it's gonna run over to Jack's house, and then it's gonna run over to John's house. And so I think the issue that we're all trying to, everybody wants to do for themselves, but I'm more concerned that if we don't address the issue in the older parts of Hoover, that they're only gonna get worse, because we've seen them deteriorate. I've seen in 2 years, and I haven't done my due diligence on this, and I didn't take a picture the day I moved in, and I don't have one today to show you the change, but the change is significant.
We appreciate
And I want the record to show that if we'll resolve this and approve the fixes tonight, I will buy everyone pizza.
Mr. Courtney is that,
I don't know you're allowed to make a motion, sir.
That's fine. I mean, listen, you know, if anybody wants to second that. But I appreciate you.
We appreciate your concern, and obviously you're already on the list.
Yes, sir.
So you're probably about 79 spots better than the other gentleman.
No, I understand and I appreciate that, and, you know, I do want some things to be done, or, you know, not things to be done. I want to have a conversation. My fix might not be the same thing that you envision. It might not be the same thing that you know, a consulting firm envisions, but let's have a discussion about it, and let's see what we can do and say, hey, you know, we can't do this, but we can do this. This looks like it'll help alleviate some of the problem, X, Y, Z. Look, we're gonna fix the deal, but you gotta fill the hole. You know, let's meet in the middle. I'm not opposed to doing things to help myself. But
Obviously, we're not gonna wait on KPS, is that correct? We're not gonna wait on KPS to,
I
help us
understand,
make
and
our decision.
I reference that in just in terms of standards for our community.
Yes,
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Yes, sir, next.
many other private properties in the city of Hoover have a problem that they would like for you to fix?
Hundreds, if not thousands.
And I understand the reasons why municipalities cannot go on private property and do work. Because if they do, everybody that's got a friend wants their problem resolved at taxpayer expense. Now, apparently these problems are beyond the point where the developers are no longer responsible. But does that make the entire city responsible for something the developer either did wrong or did not properly do? Or it just deteriorates over a period of time? Now, if the city has a water easement through there where that pipe goes, and the city has accepted that easement from the developer, the city's got problems to deal with. But there are hundreds of people in this city who have problems of one kind or another.
Unfortunately, some of these houses are in floodplains.
I understand. But all I'm saying is if you pick out a few and deal with those, it's gonna be a never-ending problem with the city. And you talk about bottomless pit, money-wise. I don't know that the city can afford it. And I dare say the property owner would have difficulty trying to fix some of it, like the one, I think the gentleman spoke just before, was $60,000.
You've already been allowed to speak tonight.
But I wasn't allowed to speak to specific
You can speak with
details
us,
of
you
easement
can
on my
speak with us
property.
individually at the end of the meeting.
Got it.
Thank you, sir.
And, it's just something that I felt like needed to be expressed, because I know you're all aware of that. And, probably, Councilman Shaw, I felt like when I came in here tonight, that it was probably a done deal, it was already gonna be approved and done. And I told him that it probably was, and I apologize for that, because it wasn't the case. But, I understand, when it's our ox that's being goaded, it's the most significant problem in the world.
Thank you for your thoughts, sir.
I appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gagg, no, this young lady right here, she was next. You want onions on your pizza, or?
No onions. My name is Karen Bailey. I am owner and principal engineer at Bailey Land Group. We're at 2170 Clearbrook Road. I am not only owner and professional engineer, I'm a resident of Hoover. I live up in Country Club Highlands. We don't live up there. But my neighbors down below us do, and there's a lot of issues going on in the city of Hoover. And Mr. Walton probably has gotten my emails. What I'm trying to do is to help some of our communities and help, I guess, the community as a whole understand drainage. Engineers tend to talk in technical terms and talk about storm events and underyear, and everybody looks at it and thinks that it's, the ark needs to be built because this, happens. There is. But understanding the technical side of things is difficult sometimes. And so I think that the council it would be prudent for the council to understand in layman's terms what the drainage issues are, what it means by when you accept a subdivision plat with a drainage easement across it. Is it the city's responsibility? If it was a water line, would it be your responsibility? I think that there's some legal questions, and I'm an attorney, can't answer those questions. I think that those are the questions that residents have right now. I think some of the issues are that deferred and or neglected maintenance of even rights, drainage areas and rights of way. I'm working with a client right now on Mockingbird Lane, and I walked just the right-of-way drainage ditches, and they're in horrendous condition, terrible condition, and that's just maintenance. And that is a city problem. It's in the right-of-way. It is the city's problem for maintenance. She had water, granted, that was a 100-year event that we had. I've done some research and figured out how much rainfall we had. It was a very significant event. Our drainage ditches are not built to withhold that amount of water. you're gonna flood, you're gonna flood. There's nothing the city could have done about it. But in this case, her drainage ditches just have not been maintained. And really, the one in front, her house is fine, it's the downstream. So what's happening is that water's backing up into her property, her neighbor's property, and the neighbor up from there. So what I would like to offer is as a resident of this city, some of my time as a professional engineer to sit down with the council to maybe give you guys a crash course in real live detention, drainage, understanding, just, some terms, layman's terms, and let you ask questions of a consulting engineer, and maybe get some ideas of really what's going on with our drainage. Why is there so much more water here than now? There's a really simple answer. Commercial development was allowed to be built without detention. So guess what? That happens. Past 20 years, we've stopped that, and detention has happened. So it's slowed that drainage down some, but it hasn't improved it. So anyway, so that's what I would like to offer. Hopefully we'll hear back from Mr. Long and his department. I'm working on the area of Mockingbird Lane right now. I looked at just so you have an idea of how much water comes through here, looked at the ultimate outflow of where Mockingbird Lane comes. And just that small area that drains down into Patton Creek, about 150 acres. If you look at the overall drainage area to that same point, it includes Vestavia. It's close to 1,700 acres of property draining into Patton Creek through the golf course. It's a lot of water, and it's a lot of
I
development.
would like to accept your offer, but only after you get with Mr. Rice, Mr. Long, Mr. Westover, and our city attorneys, and y'all all come to agree on the same thing. Because there may be some areas that y'all disagree. And I think once y'all get to where you agree, then you can come back to us. How about that?
Well, I guess the legal side of things, I can't even, that's what I can't, but I can, there's not a lot of agreeing on engineering because it doesn't change science. So there's a way to, explain that kind of stuff. So, but I'd be glad to sit down and talk with them.
Thank you. I'm sure they look forward to hearing from you.
I've emailed them, and I'm waiting to hear back from them.
Very good. Ms. Skaggs, I will look at that.
I don't really care for pizza, but I've talked to all of y'all pretty much all week about
Press please, ma'am.
Heather Skaggs, author, live in 2328 Farley Terrace. When I heard about the vote possibly being today, I wanted to come and talk about just a little bit of history and also the big picture that we're looking at. Obviously, you guys are going to take some time to look at the nuts and the bolts, answer some questions, get some answers, things like that. That's all fine. But I did want to take the time to say what I was going to say. In talking about the history of Artists on the Bluff, we have to look at the history of Bluff Park first. The area before it was Hoover, before even the name Bluff Park existed, the area was called Summit. This is pre-1900s. There was a church and a school, one building, and it was called Summit School and Church. Now, that building, those two entities, if you will, they split. The church moved and it became Bluff Park Baptist Church, which is up on the hill now. The school moved to Park Avenue in its current location, and that's when it became Bluff Park School. In 1993, a new elementary school was built, and it was alongside of the old Bluff Park School. So when that building was empty, Linda Williams, who was the director the Hoover Community Education Center. That's where that program went. And it operated there up until about 2010 or so. And that's when Ms. Williams retired. There was a lot of concern, because this was a historical building, what was going to happen to it. There's a lot of concern in the community, of course. What ended up happening was there was a joint effort between the city at the time and the school system at the time, and that's how Artists on the Bluff was formed. Linda was there as a director of sorts, voluntarily. Most of the work was all done by her and volunteers. And today it has grown up to about, I think it's 15 residents there in this GS. So the building itself has very deep historical value. The roots are very deep. But Artists on the Bluff has a great impact for the city, and it's also a great asset to it. So we don't need to lose it, but we need to make it better. So big picture, the facility is the only of its kind in Hoover. And make that Jefferson County and Shelby County as well. It is an unmatched use of the facility in this type of building. Artists on the Bluff is an established entity, not the building, the entity itself, and is comprised of world-class artists from across many different mediums. We have painters, we have woodworkers, we have any kind of class you want to take, you can come up there and take it. There's not only classes for children, this is an epicenter for adult education. This is a great place for people who maybe they don't have kids. They're retired, the kids are gone to college. You can go here, you can take a class, you can get to know other people in Hoover. That's what happens there. There are also teaching studios, there are boardrooms. So there's other groups across Hoover that also meet here. We have the Bluff Park Art Association that meets there. We have the Penn Women's Society. The Hoover Library Guild is there. The Hoover Historical Society is there. That's where the library is kept. Friends of the Hoover Library is there. The Hoover Police Department often uses the Artists on the Bluff facility for our neighborhood watch meetings. Officer Hale is always the one that does those, and that's a great thing for us to have there. It's centrally located for Bluff Park, but also other areas of Hoover. He brings them here, and that's where we have our meetings. Church groups use it as well. Of course, we've had Capers that they did not renew their lease and they're going elsewhere, but there will be something else there in that place as well. So going forward, I'm asking for a well-organized lease that's going to benefit everybody and that's fair to all parties. Another idea that I think would be very good if the lease is under the city is that we have a council liaison to the Artists on the Bluff Board. Most of y'all are very familiar, with the building. You've been there. Years ago, we did the community forum when we were voting for city council, not this past one, but the one before that. There were too many of y'all on the last one we had to move. So, if you haven't been in the building in some time, come up there and see us. I'm happy to take you on a tour. One of our resident artists, Darla Williamson, she and I did a Facebook Live tour when you guys were there for the Cake and Ice Cream 50th anniversary party, and that video quickly got up to over 3,000 views. So it's there if you'd like to watch it on Facebook, or you can come up there and visit us.
Mr. Posey was 1,200 of those.
All right, well, that is all I have to say for this evening. Thank you for letting me come.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
I know we all want to go home, it's 9 o'clock. I was was shocked to hear kind of the backstory from Mrs. Fuller as a resident, the fact that it's not being, there, a lot of, y'all are doing the upkeep. Y'all are doing the upkeep in the building, and then the school system is paying the utilities, is that correct? So, but you're doing the upkeep of the grounds and the building and everything like that. And obviously, under an agreement with the city, that would be something that the city would do, in addition to the utilities. So there would be more, more things taken on by the city. When this agreement was put together, and I realize it wasn't written, it was verbal, and it was a partnership between the city and the schools, what was the responsibility of each partner in that, as far as what they agreed to do at that time?
I wasn't in on that particular meeting. I came in afterwards, as far as getting the word out that this was happening at the building. That question would be best answered by either Linda Williams or Ron Jones, and that they can have an answer for you.
Ms. Posey, I was around then and worked with Linda Williams to help things get started. And the original promise from the schools and from the city was $50,000 a year for the first 3 years, $300,000. And then they would be self-sufficient thereafter, or it would go off into the sunset. It's my understanding that Mayor Ivey shorted Artists on the Bluff about $50,000 for reasons that are unknown to me. But that was the agreement pretty much in place. Thank you. All right, anything else from the audience? We're already here. Anything else from the council? Mr. Mayor, anything? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
God and country, so moved.
Second.
Motion second, all in favor, stand up.